Well, now I'd like to turn to Martin Breckbilt, who is building our trolley model of a LaBelle kit. Martin, welcome.
Evening, Jim. Okay, so there's where we were, well, 2 weeks ago, give or take a little bit. My sense of time is not good right now, drifting a bit. But I think we had an unfinished roof and one that was also too short. So as was suggested, it needs to be stretched out a little bit. Stretching wood is an adventure. You know, you can always make it shorter, but making it longer is painful, or a challenge, or a painful challenge. But here's how I did it. There's 2 layers of 1/32 flat sheet on each end, wrapped around the end. First layer was put on, since that's end grain, that's put on with goo and CA, and the second layer was put on with wood glue. Now, actually, to hold this in place, there was a lead brick on top of that roof, holding it down on my glass work surface so it wouldn't move anywhere. And then there were 3 more lead bricks. And I actually, am not exaggerating, they are lead bricks. In fact, that's exactly what I think it says on the side of them. They're vinyl coated. 3 out of 4 of them are. And there was one in this corner, one in the middle, and one at this corner to keep it all in place so it wouldn't move. And I let that glue set overnight on all 4 pieces. So this is a 4-day exercise. While I diligently goofed off the rest of the time for those 4 days. The silly thing about this is, while you extend this, you have to also realize 95% of it's going to get sanded off anyhow. It's all going to go away. But not knowing exactly which 95% depart, I covered up everything. Once again, easier to put it all on now as opposed to add little tiny bits and pieces later. Okay, so we have our end. Now it's just a matter of shaping the roof. This is where everybody quakes in fear or runs around like the sky's going to fall or whatever. The instructions actually give you multiple ways to do this. This is the most important part, cut and fit. But there are ways to do it. There are templates. There's all kinds of things. There's an alternate method for doing it. You can do all kinds of different things. I don't do any of those. And I ignored them all. Or I sort of did my own amalgamation of them all. There's the templates. The templates on the back page of the instructions. You can cut these out, glue them cardboard, use them as reference points for shaping things. The very first LaBelle kits I built, the Lakeshore Electric coach and combine. I actually did this route. I cut these out, glued them to a thick cardstock, and sanded it and test fit it, and sand it and test fit it, and it's like, okay. Well, that was 20 years ago. I don't sand and test fit quite as patiently as I did 20 years ago when I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And for the really anxious, LaBelle even sells, and this is in the box, a traction roof rounding kit, which has pieces you can glue on, and there's the shaping, there's your line that you cut away, here's your templates. Boy, you know, it can't get any easier, right? They give you everything you need, but you know what? You still got to shape the thing and glue all this stuff in place. Okay, so I do them by freehand. I don't even bother with the templates. It's gotten to the point where I just grab the roof and say, it should be shaped like this. And then I remove all the parts that don't belong. It's sort of like, you know, doing sculpture. You know, Michelangelo did it this way. Just remove all the marble, doesn't look like David. You're done. Right, it's easy. Tools I recommend. Well, There's one of the first ones I use, actually. The upright belt sander. My grandfather built this one when I might have been 6, 10, somewhere in there. I've since rewired it, but that's got a piece of a well-used 80 grit belt on it, 4 inches wide. And that I use to take off about 90% of the center section of the clearstory roof stock. Just do it very, very gently. Quick passages, just barely touching it. You watch it come off and take a little bit at a time, change the angle, take another slice, change the angle, and eventually you've got something that's pretty close. It actually works very, very well. You just be very, very patient and very, very delicate. And keep your fingers off of it. It'll remove that too. Next tools, a 4-in-hand. If you don't have a 4-in-hand in your shop, you probably should have one. It's useful for lots of things. You can get them at like Home Depot. I mean, even Home Depot sells a 4-in-hand. It's amazing. 90% of the lower sections on the clerestory roof get shaped with a 4-in-hand. You can't use the belt sander down there. So that's by hand, but it's only a little bit of work, and you just take quick passages through it, very gentle. You got to remember this is a compound curve in 2 different dimensions that you want to shape. So you have to be a little careful with it, a little thoughtful. Just take your time. Sanding block, 120 grit stapled on a 2x4 block. It's about 8 inches long, 7 inches long. I don't remember what the standard size of sandpaper is for sanders. I never use the electric sander. I just use a wooden block. Use that for smoothing everything out and some of the lower parts too. Okay, sanding stick. Everybody has a sanding stick, but this is a great big one. I wish I knew where I got it, where I could get a replacement one, because when the loops for this die, I don't know how to replace them. Sanding sponge, sanding pad, whatever it's called. Of course, one of those. The drum sander on the Dremel. Don't really use it a lot, but every now and then, for a couple of things, you find it useful. So very delicate, very careful. It actually has a coarse drum in it, but as you can look at it, you can see it's been hard used. So it's not going to take a lot of wood off real fast. And again, you do it very, very gently. You sneak up on it, creep up on it. Don't scare the wood. Don't scare yourself. And that's what you get after you've been very carefully sanding. You see, this is what's left of what was added on. This little tiny lip that runs all the way around. So most of it's gone. So we got to fill this back in, this hole. There's 4 of these holes. And interesting enough, because of the way I do this, every one of them is different. So it's a little bit, it's all custom work. This gap is about 6 scale inches. Distance from here to here, covering that area, 6x16 O scale. You can use larger, 6x20 if you want. I used a 6x16 just because I'm going to remove most of that anyhow. Okay, so you have to custom fit this end to that angle. And down here, this is that compound curve. You need to carve away a little bit from the back side of this so it sits down nice and tight and flush on there. Hold it up tight against this. Just scribe a pencil line here. That's your profile that you're going to have when you're done. Take it off. Draw a parallel line below that freehand, this thickness, and that's what you're going to keep. Everybody got that clear? I guess. Okay, this is a terrible photo. It's out of focus. My camera had a major twonky. But you can see this is where that lower contour line was after I've removed it all, hand carve it away, Dremel drum to smooth it to the line. The line's on the other side. If you remember that, it's on the other side. That's why you're not seeing any lines. That gets glued in place with wood glue. Let it alone for a day or a good 8 hours, because you're going to remove all the rest of this stuff that you don't need. because you're going to carve and sand off all the rest to match the roof contour. When you get done, it looks something like that. Done is a generous term here. It all needs a little bit more smoothing, maybe a little filler here and there. I don't worry about that too much. Oddly enough, it was this one, which you needed an 8x20 because the overhang was larger. Why the overhang on 1 out of 4 of these is larger is beyond me. That has to do with however the roof was milled and assembled. They should have been, all 4 of them should have been the same, but hey, if you run into one that's odd, well, you make an odd correction and do what goes with what works. So you cut that, and I cut that actually back a little further for some reason. So it's actually a little longer, so 8x20, and it worked fine. And you can see, yeah, it needs a little tidying up down here at the bottom. But that's where I'd stop to take a picture, so you're stuck with my crude stopping point. That's where you use that sanding pad and the sanding stick and maybe even the sanding block. Very smooth, come back, touch it up. Actually, and the other part of this is I'm not going to leave any of this the way it looks. And we're not even going to just paint it. We're going to cover it all over with canvas anyhow. So all you need is a shape. Okay, let me go back to the instructions for a while. Making a roof walk. Need 2 pieces of wood. Well, one of them was fine. The other one, I just didn't think there was enough to do all 4 boards. You know, I have to note here, it's 2 boards, they're not square. That's not right. Some of the drawings in this are kind of peculiar. But, so I replaced those with HO 3x12s, which I happen to like a lot for roof walks, even in O scale. You can see that this roof walk is only a partial roof walk. That's not uncommon in trolley cars. It's 2 boards as opposed to 3. This is actually an important picture because it tells you where all these 9 little pieces go. And the drawing on the instructions is half scale. So you can actually measure and say, well, yeah, the first one goes here. And then you know the last one has to go here. You know where the rest of them go in between. And I glue them on now. I don't pre-assemble my roof walk and presume I'm going to get that right. It's a lot easier to just put them right on the roof. So you draw a center line down the middle, mark where the 9 go, glue them in place, not worry about it. Okay, a little bit of canvas work. All of a sudden, all those joints and everything disappear. This is actually wrapped around and under the overhang. It's my favorite canvas, the single ply napkin from Panera. And you just double layer it. It's in there with just dilute aqueous white glue, carpenter's glue, all mixed together about 50%. And for the underneath, it starts actually underneath and wraps up around. It folds right around the wood perfectly fine. And I don't even know what kind of brush I'm using, but it's a much abused brush. I keep 4 or 5 of these around just for doing roof, canvas on roofs. And you can see the 9 supports. So it's wrapped up tight against all of them. And that red stuff isn't blood. That's actually paint. I started painting it a little bit. Got ahead of myself a little bit. I got excited. Grabbed the red paint. Okay, so as of about, let's see, what time is it? Well, my clock isn't working and I can't tell what it's. I would say I'm guesstimating about 90 minutes ago. It looked like this. So that is a caboose red on the roof, opening in the windows, and it's SP Lark Dark Gray everywhere else. I like the Lark Dark Gray. I think grimy black is too black. All the blacks are too black, and the gray is kind of nice looking. I still need to add the roof walk boards at each end and do a little bit of touch up, and then glaze these. I have some glazing that I'll talk about some other day. that goes in there. Okay. Next step is to add these body spacers, which I'm not going to do now because once you put the body spacers in, it's a pain in a rump to put the glazing in and put any kind of interior, because now you're working around two boards that you don't want in your way. So they get left out until a lot later. And this is where it ends. This is where the kit ends, believe it or not. That's number 16 is the last panel. That's the end of the instructions. So, I pointed out, what, 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, this builds the body shell. Okay, we got a body shell. Ta-da, that's done. But, you don't want to stop here. But wait, there's more. There's a set of Ginsu knives in here somewhere. Okay, yeah, we have a boatload of detail parts to add, because otherwise it's a naked hunk of wood or a box of wood. So, we got trolley poles, we got pole bases, we got 2 different types of steps, we've got fuse boxes, roof mats, brake cylinders. It's nice to have brake cylinders so you can stop going downhill. Anti-climbers. I don't know if we need them or not. Resistors. You see, these are from Wagner, which is long defunct. Current lines, which as far as I know is defunct. Walthers and O-Scale, it's been defunct 30 years at least. Q-Car is still in business and doing well. Last I heard, last week, I had a nice couple of emails from Quentin, so I'm pretty sure he's still alive and kicking. And I ordered more parts from him, so if he's not, I'm in a lot of trouble. More parts. Resistor banks. Somewhere there's a compressor. There it is, compressor in the cradle to hold the compressor, a couple of truss rod sets, a tank, some tank ends to make tanks, retrievers. These are controllers. There's 2 sets of cab controllers in here, so 1 for each end. We're going to need at least 1 of these car bolsters. And here are what radial couplers will look like. Okay, they're North Shore. Okay, well, we'll survive the North Shore ones on our Sacramento Northern. They just reverse the letters. Don't worry about it. Oh, yeah, it would be nice if this trolley actually went somewhere and on the track. Here's a Q-Car drive. Brand new, still wrapped up in the plastic. Haven't even taken it out and played with it yet. We'll have to put wipers on it to pick up electricity. It's insulated, so it doesn't need the poles. So for people who don't have an overhead, like myself, who like to pretend there's an overhead, you have regular 2-rail track, a couple of wipers, and off you go. And you can always put it up to a pole later if you really want to. Oh yeah, there's more. We got interior painting, staining, details on the interior. Exterior painting, we got glazing, and then more interior. Because after you put the glazing in, you have to actually go back and put more wood in, so the windows actually look like windows from the inside, because you can see inside from the outside. And I'm going to stop here because I'm going to see if Jim wants me to come back in a week or 3, and where I'll maybe make an end of it. I don't know. So it's up to you, Jim.
I want you back.
Oh, it's so nice to be wanted. I feel so warm and fuzzy.
I mean, it's almost like you're going to have to write a second set of instructions to finish this car.
Well, that's the problem. You're on your own. Like I said from the very beginning, once you get, it builds a shell. It's a body kit. And once you get to the end of the body, hey, you're on your own. You're swimming in no man's lands, the lake in the middle of no man's land. And
I
there's
understand,
crocodiles
Martin.
out there. There's Florida alligators in it.
I understand, Martin, but you are a trolley guy, so you know what needs to be done.
Oh, I make it up as fast as I can when nobody's looking.
Absolutely. All right. See you next week.